Hi everyone, it's Kris from my girlfriend's quilt shop, and in today's video we're going to be diving right into the Squeeze the Day little mini quilt. This is the June Mini Quilt from Kimberbell Designs, and it is just as adorable as can be. I mean, let's take a closer look at this. We're going to be doing a bowl full of blueberries, which look plump and so sweet. Then we have our berry jam that is nice and fresh, and it has a fresh feeling to it too, wouldn't you say? With a cute little ruffle trim, and the baker's twine is added to it, which I think is a lot of fun. Of course, you can't go wrong with the peaches. You will be able to use a little bit of flexi foam underneath one of the peaches to give some added dimension to this block. And then, of course, we finish it all off with the Squeeze the Day lemonade block. How adorable is that? With the tiny little seed beads that are included in that little glass of lemonade. Pretty darn cute, I'd say. And of course, the killer for me is the blue polka dot background. I absolutely love it. So this is going to be a really fun mini quilt to put together on your embroidery machine. And let's go ahead and get started with all the fun. Before we begin, I want to show you two of the blocks that I have already stitched out before our lesson. And that is this adorable peaches block, which, like I mentioned, has the little flexi foam behind it. And then we have the bowl full of blueberries. Now, both of these blocks are your simple applique blocks. Very, very easy to do. And many of you, if you've been following along with the mini quilt series, you will think to yourself, you know what? I got this. I know exactly how to put these blocks together. There's really not a whole lot of new techniques in this one. And so therefore, I just went ahead and stitched these out. So I encourage you to do the same at home. And then as we get started with today's lesson, today is going to be all about that cute jam block. For this, we're going to actually use a little bit of our sewing machine, just a teeny tiny bit, as we ruffle the fabric before it goes onto the jam, which is a really fun trim to it. And then we'll talk about how to add background quilting to your block. And then at the machine, we'll actually go into a little bit more about how to use the clear vinyl on this block as well, which gives it another added dimension. So really fun techniques are involved in this block. Now, one thing I'd also like to mention before we begin is that in this video, I actually will not be going over the cutting of this. If you are new to Kimberbell or are new to these mini quilts or would like to just have some added instruction on how to cut out the blocks for these projects, I encourage you to go back to some of our earlier videos. In those, January, February, March, and so forth, you will see some instruction that is all based around following a Kimberbell diagram for your fabric, and then being able to situate and orientate your fabric so that you know exactly how those blocks are cut out. So it's the same thing, rinse and repeat over and over again. And so I encourage you, if you need some added insight on how that is done, to go back to our previous videos and do just that. All right, let's go ahead and begin with talking about the jam block. So let's take a look at page 11, and here we see all of the different fabric requirements, and we're going to make sure we have some clear vinyl, which is this 12 gauge vinyl right here, as well as your baker's twine that's going to be added onto there. Now, I'm excited. I'm ready to go ahead and start the block, right? However, I need to do something before I do that. And that is, I need to go over to my sewing machine, and I'm going to sew a basting stitch along one long edge of the fabric with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So that's this right here. I'm just going to lengthen my stitch and just stitch all the way down. And then once I've done that, I can pull those bobbin threads and be able to ruffle that up a little bit. I want to ruffle it till it makes it about 2 inches approximately. Okay, so that's the first thing I want to do. I could do it by hand if I wanted to as well. but I'm going to go ahead and just do it at my machine. So let's head over there and do just that. At my machine, I'm going to place it at a 1/4 inch seam allowance, which is this one right here, Q02, for those of you who own Baby Lock or Brother. And I want to lengthen my stitch length. So you can see right here, it was at a 2.0. I'm going to make it as long as it will go, which is a 5.0 millimeter. All right, so that's going to be my nice basting stitch. Now I'll just place this underneath. I'm actually going to take my hand wheel and bring that bobbin thread up. And the reason why I want to do that is because I want to have a nice long tail at the beginning and at the end of my seam here, so that I have something to grab onto to create the ruffle. Okay, now I feel good about beginning. Press her foot up against the edge of my fabric. At the end, I don't want to use my thread cutter. I'm just going to simply lift up my needle and pull this out. You can see here that my green is on top, my white is on the bottom, and it's the white thread that I want to pull. Just like that. See how easy this little ruffle comes together? And again, I want to do it till it's about 2 inches wide, give or take a little bit. Okay. So once I've done that, I can just set that little guy aside. Let's begin by talking about adding background quilting designs to your embroidery files. It's really a lot of fun, and this is an optional thing you can do. It's not required in order to complete this project. However, if you want that adorable background quilting, I encourage you to head on over to kimberbell.com, and that is where you will find those downloads. So on this particular block, it is asking us to use the KDQ 252 Fruit 6 4x6 design. Now, this is merely a suggestion. You don't have to do it that way, but it really is an adorable background quilting file, and I want to show you what it looks like right here. Okay, so this is the fruit design, and this block is actually going to end up going horizontal like that, but as we place the hoop into the machine, this is the direction it's going to look like. Now, this is the background quilting. For a moment, I'd like you to envision what this is going to look on your project. If we have background quilting, we certainly want it to stay in the background so that it's not going over top of the applique in this on this particular block. Now, I also printed what this block is going to end up looking like. So when I take this from my USB stick, put it into the machine, and I pull this file up, what's going to happen is that this applique file will rest right on top, and it's automatically going to come center into the hoop over top of my background quilting files. So I just wanted to be able to touch base with you on that because I want you to visualize what's happening. When I take it to the machine and I pull up my first file, the first file I want to pull up, background quilting. Then I will add the applique to go on top. All right, let's go over to the machine and see how that all happens in real time. I've pulled up my files here on the machine, and what I'm looking for is the 4x6 fruit design, which is the one right here. And I'll go ahead and hit set. And before I go to embroider, I actually need to add the applique on, right? So I'm going to hit add and then pull up my USB stick once again. And now I'm looking for the strawberries, and that is this one right here, KD5130. Perfect, hit set, and there you go. You can see, just as I had shown you with the printouts, that my background quilting files are behind the applique files. With that being done, and it's all centered and now ready to go. So I'll hit embroidery. And the first thing it's going to do is it's going to stitch the placement line for where to place my batting. Again, this is because we are doing background quilting. If you choose not to do background quilting and you actually choose the alternative option, you won't find this step. This step is only for those of you who are doing background quilting. All right. So I'm going to just slide my hoop into the machine. You can see here that I have put a light mesh cutaway stabilizer in here. And let's go ahead and stitch the placement line for the batting. I'll now place my batting centered over top of the placement outline. At this point, I'm going to grab my Kimberbell scissors and be able to trim away the excess batting. Now the next stitch at the machine is going to be a placement outline that is 1/4 inch outside of the batting line. This is going to show me exactly where to place my background fabric. Now that my batting and background have been stitched in place, it's now time to do my favorite part, and that is the background quilting. Go ahead and choose a thread color that you want to have either stand out or melt right back into the fabric. So it really is up to you. On this one, I'm going to go ahead and use a little bit darker green. Wasn't that fun? I love the background quilting design files from Kimberbell. They really are added an extra touch to all of your quilting and sewing projects. So fun. All right, so now it's time to go ahead and begin the rest of the embroidery block. And the first thing we're going to do is stitch out the jar. And so it's going to follow the simple applique steps of, you have a placement line and then you have a tack down stitch and so forth. Now we are going to be adding a little bit of clear vinyl here in just a minute. So watch closely for that. But other than that, it's pretty easy peasy. Let's go ahead and do it. This is easy enough to trim out that I'm just going to pull it out about halfway from my machine, and just using my little snippers here, we'll just go ahead and trim the excess fabric away. Now it's time for the satin stitch. This is where that clear vinyl now comes into play, and you can kind of see the shimmer. I know it's probably difficult to see, but you can see that I'm holding on to something right here. This is the clear vinyl. It's going to go over top of where we just stitched. And if you just center it right along there, I would definitely recommend using a little bit of Kimberbell paper tape just to hold it in place. It can get a little, loose as the stitches begin, so we don't want it to move around too much. So I'm going to go ahead and place that tape on there. I'm also going to use the same color thread as I did before, so just keep that same pink in there. And this is going to do the tack down stitch of the vinyl. Now we'll go ahead and remove the tape, and I'm just going to have my hoop resting right here. And just like a normal applique, we'll go ahead and just trim this up. And you can trim it as close to the stitch line or as far away from the stitch line as you'd like. I'm going to trim mine right up against the stitch line. Okay, now that that's finished, the next step is it's going to do the placement line for the label. And for this, I do want to change out my thread color. I'm going to change it to a white, as my label is going to be also white. The next two stitches that are going to happen are two placement lines, and that is so that we know where to place our red and white twine. You may not be able to see very well, but there's a little stitch line right here and a second little stitch placement line right here. What I want you to do is you're going to take your 15 inches of baker's twine and just kind of center it over there. In fact, if you really want to be particular, you could fold this in half, find that centering mark, and then just place it right along there, just so you have enough on each side. Okay, we're just placing it right here at the top. And then you're going to take some Kimberbell paper tape and you're just going to hold this in place. You're going to place one piece of tape right there in the center, a second piece off to the side, holding that down, and a third piece over on the other side, holding this side down. Okay. What will happen is it's going to stitch over those areas so that it's, the baker's twine holds in place. When we're finished, we're going to remove the center tape, but we will keep the two side tapes taped down so that it doesn't get in the way of the other stitching that's going to happen. But we will remove this center tape, as you'll see here in just a moment. Now I'm going to remove this. And the next stitch out is going to be the placement line for where to place my ruffle that we had done previously. Okay, so the placement line has just stitched out for where to place my ruffle, but because I used white thread, you may not be able to see it very well. So I'm just going to outline it right here for you. So this is what just barely stitched out on my machine. Now what I want to do is I'm going to take this little ruffle and I'm going to place the top edge right up against that line that just stitched out. And you don't want it to be longer than the line and you don't want it to be shorter than the line. It has to be just right, just like the Three Bears, right? And so if you need to do a little slight adjustment, you certainly can do that right now. All right, so let's just place that right there along the edge. And then what you'll do is you'll take a piece of the paper tape and just kind of hold that in place. Let's go ahead and grab that and just place it right there along the top. Okay, I can see right here I need to go a little bit further out. So again, just do some little minor adjustments right here. And then just place another piece of tape here for good measure. Okay, there we go. So with that now in place, there we have it. I can take this back to the machine and it's going to do the tack down stitch to hold that ruffle in place. The next line that's going to stitch out is a placement line for where to place my jar topper fabric. Okay, now this is going to be as if I were piecing it in. All right, so it's going to stitch down and then I'm going to fold it out and it's going to be just as if I were piecing a block. So what that means is that when it comes time to place it down, it will go with the right side of the fabric facing down, right? Oftentimes with applique, we keep the right side facing up. However, this part of the applique is pieced, so that when this goes down, it goes right side down. Let's take a look. My placement line just stitched out, and now I know where to place this fabric. Again, it's going to go right side down, right up against it. I could put a little piece of paper tape if I wanted to. I'll go ahead and just kind of hold it gently with my fingers and let it stitch out. This is now stitched out and now it's going to flip up. Now you may see some of my threads from earlier when I was doing a basting stitch on my machine. I had used green threads. No big deal, I can pull those out later. So if you are seeing your basting stitches from earlier, don't let it bother you. You can easily pull those out. Now at this time, you could take an iron to this and press it. However, I really love the ability to use my fabric folding pin right here. I'm just going to slide that right along the seam. This has a little bit of water and a little bit of a fabric softening solution in here, which makes it so ideal when it comes to piecing in the hoop. You can see how nice that seam allowance goes down and it stays down, right? So I love that. Now I'll take it back to the machine and it's going to finish tacking down the jar topper. You can see here that it stitched the tack down line, and all I'm going to do is just trim away the edges, the side edges, and along the top. Just perfect like that. And then when I take it back to the machine, it's now going to do a decorative stitch over top of that line. I'm going to go ahead and remove the tape now at this point from the edges as well as along that bottom ruffle. There we go. Okay. With that removed, I'm now ready to go ahead and stitch out Berry Fresh. So make sure you change your thread colors for this one. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and tie this into a bow, just like that. And then I'm going to place a piece of tape over top just to make sure it doesn't get in the way of the rest of my stitching. So you can go ahead and scrunch that up as much as you'd like and make sure that that twine is just out of the way. Okay. All right, there's that. Now, at this point, this is exciting because we are about halfway done, but the rest is pure and simple. It is your basic applique. So what am I talking about? When we have the strawberries, it's going to first do a placement line for where to place our fabric, right? And we just place our fabric over top of it. And then it does the tack down stitch and we trim around, and then it does that cute decorative stitch around it. So just pay close attention to whether you're doing red strawberries or pink strawberries, and the rest is easy peasy. You're just following the directions step by step, placement, tack down, and a cute fill that goes around them. And there we go. What a fun block to make. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Now it's time just to do a little bit of trimming of those jump threads in between the seeds, and this block is ready to go into my mini quilt. All right, it's your turn now. I can't wait to see your pictures. Make sure and tag us on social media with the hashtag #MyGirlfriendsQuiltShop as well as hashtag Kimberbell, so that everyone who loves Kimberbell can see what you've been working on. And make sure that you like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We want to hear from you, and we are always excited to be able to put out new video content, and you'll be the first to know when it launches. All right, so definitely like and subscribe to that. Make sure and like us on Facebook and Instagram and all the different social media platforms so that you're always in the know of what's happening at My Girlfriend's Quilt Shop. And don't forget, it's not too late to purchase your very own copy of the mini quilts from Kimberbell. We have just finished up wrapping up all of the filming for Volume 1, and we're so excited for Volume 2. It's about to hit stores here very soon. So make sure and pick up your copy of Volume 2 at mygirlfriendsquiltshop.com. We also have kits, embellishment kits, all the things. So everything Kimberbell you can find at mygirlfriendsquiltshop.com. Happy sewing, happy stitching, all the things, and we'll see you again real soon. Bye-bye.